So, Carl, I have checked your LinkedIn profile and your bio, and I did some kind of research on you, and I found out that you have a pretty interesting profile, and it seems like you're a very driven person since you're doing a lot of things since the age of 15, which I think many teenagers don't do usually. And so I've seen in your profile that you could like secure many fundings, like one of $16,000 and and something around like $160,000. Sorry, pounds. So at such a young age, how did you manage these kind of fundings for your startup? And what kind of qualities did you have?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. And in answer to your question, yeah, I have for about the past 10 years since I was 13. I've been trying to start various online businesses and trying to make money online. Some things that I've tried worked. Most things that I've tried over the past 10 years have failed. They didn't lead to anything other than, of course, great experience and knowledge. And in terms
Mhm.
of the fundraising, I mean, Revolancer is the first time that I raised external investment for a company. So it's not something that I've done for many years. It's something that I learned how to do more recently. Essentially, the way I approached is the same way that I approach most things that I haven't done yet. And that's that I think that the best place to start is to learn from somebody who has done it before. So when I knew that I wanted to do fundraising, I reached out to other founders who have done fundraising successfully and to angel investors, not asking for money, but asking for feedback. And then I would work with these people to really refine my pitch and strategy. And then when it came to actually approaching investors for real and raising funding, I already knew what I was doing because I had learned from other people's experiences where I didn't have any experience myself at that point.
So, like, did you use any kind of strategy to convince investors to invest in your company? Because what you're doing is something very new, and for like my audience who doesn't know, he's the founder of Revolancer, who like which is a company that does not charge anything from the freelancers, and I think it's better if you introduce it yourself because you would know it better than me, right? So.
Sure. So we're a freelancing platform. We connect clients and freelancers. And what makes us different is we don't charge a commission fee. So the large players in the market will typically take about 20% of your earnings and stop you from contacting your clients outside of their platform. But we don't charge any commission fees. So you keep 100% of what you make and you can speak with clients outside of the platform. And these are issues that I found with other large platforms as a freelancer myself, which then inspired me to start Revolancer to try and fix these issues.
So, like a big amount of funding came from angel investors, as you were saying, right? So, I'm pretty sure like many of my audiences are young people and they would like to start their own businesses in the future and in the tech world as well, especially since the tech world is booming right now. So, like, if you have to guide them in terms of getting investments from external sources, how would you do that? Like, what would be your secret sauce?
I mean, I have a few tips that I can give, but I'd say, the first and most important thing is to work with people and speak to people who have already fundraised, because then you can get their feedback on your specific pitch and, specifically on what you're looking to raise and what your different strategies are. And from their feedback, you can develop the right kind of approach. I'd say, some more general tips that I can throw out there is it's very important to be able to demonstrate good traction. So if you can generate some revenue already, great. If you can get some users signed up, that's fantastic. Oftentimes, you won't have the funding, capacity to kind of do that before you raise investment. But there are certainly things you can do, like, for example, building a landing page where you collect people's email addresses just to show that there's some demand. Or even if it's just going onto Facebook groups and speaking to your target customers and surveying them, interviewing them, asking them certain questions so that you can really
Hmm.
demonstrate that there's a need for your proposed product. I'd say that's a very good starting point. Many companies don't do that. And I'd say that's probably quite a big reason why they don't secure funding. Very important to have a solid team, because especially in your earlier investment rounds, people aren't really investing in the company or the idea, they're investing in you and your team. So you need to show that you are somebody who can execute and who's going to be adaptable, and that you surround yourself with great people, and that you're capable of attracting great talent to help you along the journey. So that means finding a great co-founder, finding some great advisors to help you out,
Hmm.
and I'd say that that puts you in a pretty good starting place. So you need to have good traction, you need to have a good team and show an ability to attract the right people, and then ultimately speak with people who have already fundraised, who can then make some introductions for you, hopefully, but at the very least give you the right feedback and advice to specific to your business and your situation to get the process started.
That's a pretty solid answer, to be honest. And the answer itself opens up a lot of door for a lot of more exploration and questions. As you said that you need to have some kind of attraction before you like reach out to the investors. And so the main question is, how do you gain that attraction? Because even like my example, I did not run a business, but I have a small YouTube channel. In that channel, I'm going to upload this podcast and like short clips of that of this podcast. And I know it's pretty hard to gain attraction from people, right? Let alone like giving your information to an unknown website or convincing them for that, or actually buying something from them. So how do you gain your first few customers, or how do you gain your first few like people who is going to support your business, and based on which you're going to show to your investors that no, I'm actually doing something substantial and you should invest in my company?
Yeah, so I mean, the first point that I'll say is it is hard. I don't think anything you can do can make it not hard. It is hard to get people to give their feedback, especially when you don't really have anything there yet. But even if you have an established company, if you send out a survey, it's hard to get many people to respond to it. So
Hmm.
well, in terms of building traction, I think when you're just starting out, you'll probably be cash poor, but you'll be time rich. So you can use that time to really go out there. Once you've identified the target audience for your idea, go out to certain Facebook groups on Reddit or other social media sites and find where they hang out, and then just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm trying to make your life easier. I'm conducting research about an idea. Would you be willing to chat with me? Would you be willing to just answer a few questions over message? Would you be willing to hop on a quick 15-minute call? And I think you'd be surprised. If you do that enough, you'll get people responding. You'll get people who want to help out, because ultimately you're showing an interest in them, and you are looking to solve a problem that they're facing. So it takes a bunch of work, but at the beginning you have plenty of time, and doing this kind of outreach is free. So use what you have to the best of your ability, which is your time and your drive. And then it'll take a while, but sooner or later you'll have all the kind of research and data that you need.
Hmm. Even though I did not start a business yet, but I know how hard it is to start from something from scratch and grow it. Like what I've realized is that you need to invest a lot of time into it, because you need to learn about the industry, you need to develop the skills, specific skill sets depending on which industry you're working in. You have to invest your time and energy and resources. Even like you cannot just go right into it if the thing is relatively new, because you never know whether it's going to succeed or not. There's a huge risk factor in like new businesses and new startups or whatever new you're trying to do. And specifically, if I mention with this channel of mine, I realize that it's a constant learning curve. You can never say that, oh, I have reached a certain point and I do not have anything to learn about. So I guess it's same for businesses and actually trying to make a difference in people's lives, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think the second that you think you know everything is the second that you start losing. Um, you'll never know everything, and there's that saying that the more you know you don't know, which is just so accurate. The
Hmm.
more you learn and the more of an expert you actually become in a field, the less secure you'll feel. You'll feel more insecure, because you'll be so aware of all of the things that are out there that you don't know. Whereas if you're just starting out in a field, it's easy to think that you know everything because you just don't know the full kind of scope of the industry or whatever field you're kind of talking about. So it's a very
Hmm.
good sign if you're learning about something if you become quite aware of your standing within that field. And I think irrespective of what field you're in, you're never going to be able to learn everything. So you just have to focus on always learning more and doing the best you can.
True, very true. So, you've worked with a lot of businesses, and most of them have been based on like startups and in the technology industry. And as we all know today, like technology industries are mainly based on like Revolancer, I'm pretty sure, is based on using a lot of users' data, right? And you collect data from the freelancers, you collect data from people who are visiting our website, who are looking for jobs and who are applying for jobs, who are giving jobs. So um, when I saw like a documentary about Amazon, like back in the days, and like when they're developing their website, and they got to see that how valuable the data which they're generating from customers is in terms of predicting human behavior and understanding human behavior and understanding people in general. So you have Revolancer, which is like growing very fast since it's a very new company, and I've just checked recently that it gained around $650,000 pounds of revenue. Like given that it started in 2021, like what useful insights did you gain about people or about things like about networking or people in general?
Sure. So I mean, while we are quite a data-driven organization, it isn't our sort of main way of making money. We don't sell customer data at all. We only kind of use it in an anonymized way to improve, the usability of the website mainly. Whereas social media companies like Facebook, I mean, any social media company of your choosing use user data basically as their primary revenue source because they sell that to advertisers essentially.
Yes.
So we don't operate quite in that way. But in terms of insights that I've learned, I'd say what's most important is building a product that your users actually love using. And a lot of our growth has come from building a product that freelancers enjoy so much to the point that they will, well, one, use it frequently, but two, tell other people about it and recommend it to other freelancers. So that's really what you have to focus on. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in things like, monthly active users, average session duration, all this kind of stuff. But keep in mind that if somebody's on your website for longer, it could also mean that they are getting frustrated and stuck because they don't really know where they need to go to sort something basic out. So these metrics
Yeah.
are important, but it's much more important to build something that people really love using and will talk about, and that's something worth tracking. The kind of the virality factor of your platform. I'd say that's much more important than any of these less meaningful stats like how long is someone on the website, because again it could mean that people love using the website and it could mean that people are confused, and you don't necessarily know that. So yeah, best to focus on what's important.
Hmm. I think the freelancing field is a very competitive field right now, especially in my country and in developing countries. People find it to be a way of earning money from selling the soft skills which they can learn from using a laptop from their comfort of their own home and earn like a healthy amount, to be honest. And like I know like many people from my country of my age are doing freelancing jobs like graphic designing, video editing, SEO, and web development from their home besides their traditional studies and traditional jobs. And whenever a successful freelancer comes on YouTube and tries to describe how to start freelancing, they usually go for main websites like Upwork and Fiverr, right? So I can say like it's pretty understandable that these companies are having a big pie, the big share of the freelancing website market share. So as a new startup, how do you plan to gain more like traction, and how do you what are the strategies using which you want to gain some more market share?
Sure. Well, I mean, in my opinion, the offering that we have is better for freelancers than the platforms that you mentioned just now. I say that,
Mm.
because for two main reasons. One, we don't charge any commission fees, whereas both of those platforms charge quite a large commission fee. And two, we allow you to video call with your clients and email and talk to them outside of the platform. And both of those platforms you mentioned, again, they don't allow that. So those are two pretty core issues shared by many of the large freelancing platforms, and that's what we're looking to change. And as we're reaching more people, they hear that, they think that's appealing generally, and then they'll sign up. So I believe that we're on a pretty good trajectory to with a much more appealing product to keep onboarding new users. I also think it's going to be something that's difficult for large platforms to compete with because their entire revenue model relies on commission fees, and the fact that they need to restrict communication relies on again on the commission fees. So if they were to try and change the model up, they would have a disruption in their revenue, and they'd need to try and figure out something else that works. And if they're such a large public company with a multi-billion-dollar market cap like Fiverr and Upwork both are, it's going to be tricky. And I don't think they necessarily want to do that either, for a number of reasons. But I just think the best thing we can do is create a more appealing solution, and then as we scale up, just share it with more and more people at a faster pace, and then eventually we'll start making some real noise compared to the big platforms.
I have seen that in the tech industry, when a small startup starts to gain attraction, the big the big sharks tries to like buy them out. So
Mhm.
if like Fiverr or Upwork gives any offer to Revolancer, like we'll pay you this amount of money, and you just give me this amount of assets. How would you like? What would be your strategy with negotiating with that? Especially, I've seen with Amazon, like whenever there's a company that they feel threatened by, they either like offer them to buy, like they want to buy them out, or if the company refuses, they impose such strict business strategies that the small business goes out of the market. So like it's a very tricky situation, right? So as a young founder, how do you deal with this um, tricky situation?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is to change the freelancing industry for the better. So if a large player were to come and give us an acquisition offer, I would want for a part of that deal to be that they implement our strategy of being fairer to freelancers. And if we
Mm.
can pull that off and basically have one of these massive platforms act in a much fairer way towards freelancers, and then they pay us to acquire the company, I think that's a win. So it depends, on the exact deal. But ultimately, what's most important is basically making the freelancing industry fairer for the freelancers, because that will benefit everyone. Because if freelancers are treated better, ultimately the work that clients are receiving is better. So everybody wins if freelancers are being prioritized.
Hmm. I'm pretty sure that whatever thing you're doing right now, you're not doing it alone, and that you have to manage a team, you have to manage people who are going to work for you, and is going to make life easier for you, right? One of the key mistakes I've heard like the founders make is that they are too much. I think it goes for people like in Asian countries, and that is like they're too much fearful of allocating work to other people. Like they think that they're going to lose control over their company. they they fear that the other people are not going to do a good job in terms of maintaining the company standards, and it's not going to be according to what they feel like. So how do you like recruit good people who are going to like not let you down, and how do you later on manage them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, and I think that we've been really quite successful at recruiting the right people. First time. I mean, that hasn't happened every time. We've certainly made mistakes and hired the wrong people at times, but on the whole, our kind of successful hiring rate is much higher than average, and I think that that's in large part because I I value very different things in an interview or in a job application to what most employers do. So I think most employers, they'll probably look at your educational background first. They'll look at how many keywords you have on your CV that match their kind of key list of things. Then they'll have an
Hmm.
interview and they'll basically pick the best salesperson. So just the person who talks the best. That's not how we do things at all. So I do not care about people's educational background. It's the last thing I look at. I'm much more interested in what have they done that demonstrates exceptional ability and the ability to kind of think for themselves and see the world differently to most other people. So that's I have a few interview questions that are based around that. That's all I look for. Educational history doesn't matter. And then when it comes to an interview, I'm very good at spotting people who, just talk and basically just talk, but there's no substance behind it. And it's very important to really watch out for people like that because there are some very good salespeople out there, but who can't actually deliver. So what I want to do is I want to catch out the people who other companies will look over because they're not that good at selling themselves. They do terribly in an interview, but when it actually comes to the work, they do exceptionally well. And we've hired a few people like that who traditionally didn't do great in the interview, but then when we actually gave them a trial, they did exceptionally well, far above and beyond what we were even expecting the candidate would need to or be able to do. So I think if you really nail the hiring process, then the management process is easy. Because if you have
Hmm.
great people who are exceptionally good at what they do and are self motivated, then really, as a your leadership role is kind of setting an objective, helping move obstacles out of people's way. But other than that, you stay out of their way and you let them do what they do best, and ultimately, drive the company forward.
Hmm. Don't you think it's hard to satisfy people who are highly driven, who are highly skilled, and who have good amount of experience in the field? Because they can just go anywhere and people will recruit them. They have that option. So why would they choose your company? How would you keep them? Like what retention strategies do you have?
Well, I think we have great company culture. The other thing is, if working in a startup is appealing to them, they're going to have a lot more of an impact on the whole organization than if they were to work for a company with like 1,000 employees or something like that. So it has to be the right fit for them as well. If we find someone who's great for us, but we're not great for them, then that's not the right relationship there. They have to find the idea of working in a startup really, really appealing. They have to believe in the mission of making the world a better place for freelancers, and we make
Hmm.
sure that the people we hire have those driving beliefs. They want to work in this kind of environment, and then people generally don't want to leave even if they get offered more money somewhere else. They typically won't want to leave because that's not the main thing that drives them. They're getting the main thing that drives them in this case.
How do you spot people who are genuine and who are not genuine? Because at times you will meet people who are desperate for the job because maybe they have some family issues, financial issues, and people, if they know that they are getting supervised by someone, they try to act their best even though their actions or their work do not actually represent that. They prepared themselves for the interview. They memorize a few questions. They like watch a lot of YouTube videos just to deliver properly during that interview, but their performance throughout the year or throughout their career might not be the same according to what the interview they're giving, right? So, like, how do you spot what's genuine and what's not genuine?
So I mean, in a few different ways. I think first of all, I have a very good gut feel for judging people relatively quickly. I've been
Mhm.
found myself, where I don't even know why, but just my gut feel on someone has been right time and time again. Of either I think someone is a great performer or that someone is bullshitting me, essentially. So that's a big part of it. But also, let's say someone has a history of not really performing in jobs. You can typically tell that if every previous job they had, they were only at the company for like 4 months each. So
Mm.
and there are always signs. You can also get references. And it's unlikely that a company will say something negative in a reference about somebody who previously worked there for a number of reasons. But you can still tell, based on how they respond to your reference request, even if they say nice things, whether it's genuine or not, and whether they're actually just, trying to get rid of the person. So yeah, I mean, there are a few different ways you can tell. There are a few different things I look out for. Also, I don't ask typical interview questions. Very few, only a small number of the interview questions I ask you'll be able to find by googling, popular interview questions or whatever. So I ask questions specifically that throw people off, where I can then really see what they're like, rather than get some kind of scripted response to what they already practiced.
Hmm. I think hiring people is the key aspect in terms of, like, hiring the right people is the key aspect in terms of growing your team, growing your business, because ultimately the founder himself or herself can handle very few jobs by themselves, right? Ultimately, you'll have to hire people, you'll have to, like, give out give away your work so that you do not have to take all of the pressure, so that you can allocate work to different people, and so that you yourself can focus on more of the strategic stuff, so that the company gets a direction and it can thrive when it's needed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a company is a collective of people who work together to try and solve a common goal. So, the people are the most important part of the company, and it's absolutely key that you hire people who are smarter and better than you are in their respective fields, so that for the tasks that you hand to them, they do a better job than you ever could at that certain task. That's very important too, and I think that's something that a lot of founders, when they grow their team initially, will struggle with, because I think naturally we want to, like, I want to be the smartest person in the room kind of thing.
Hmm.
But what's important is that your company has the best chance of thriving. So you are doing yourself and the company a massive disservice if you only hire people who are not as able as you are, just to protect your own ego, basically. So it's very important to try to be the dumbest person in the room, to hire people who are much better at certain tasks than you are. It doesn't mean they have to be, better at everything than you are. That's probably unrealistic. People tend to be good in, at certain things. But let's say you are handling the marketing, but now you want to hand that off to somebody as you scale the team. You better find someone who's much better and much more experienced in marketing than you are, because that's going to give your company the best chance.
If the people you're hiring are better than you, then how will you supervise them? Won't you feel insecure? Like, you will have no idea about what they're doing, about their work, and how they're doing.
You just put trust in them. It's a very good thing if you don't need to kind of like micromanage them, because then you can focus on the things you're good at, and the things you need to be good at as the founder of the company. Is, one, setting a good company culture, and two, making sure you don't run out of money. So making sure that revenue's up, expenses are low, that you raise investment where necessary. Those are the things you need to focus on. Everything else, you need to get other people who are really good at those things to do for you, because then as a collective you are kind of doing the best you can. Whereas if you hire people who are not, that great at what they do, then you're just harming yourself, essentially.
Hmm. How do you keep people who are highly skilled, experienced, motivated, and convince them that no, we are the best place or the best freelance place you can work for?
I think a big part of it is treating them with respect, and so I think in many situations, if people have a job, their manager will kind of feel that they are above them, and make them jump through all kinds of hoops. And I think a big part of what makes our team, really passionate about their work, well, I don't know if it's a big part, but I think it's certainly a part, is the fact that we treat them with respect. I will treat people with respect. Like, let's say if somebody has, um, they want to take the day off for whatever reason, kind of to have a break, and maybe it's on short notice. As long as it doesn't cause a disruption, we let people do that, and that's just a small example. But ultimately, it's just about treating people with respect and treating them as an equal, because ultimately they are an equal. Yes, maybe you have more power than they do, or more decision making power in a certain organization, but what you're good at is different to what they're good at. They also bring a lot to the table, because frankly, if they didn't, they wouldn't be working there. So yeah.
Hmm. The people you hire are very important, and it's very important to keep them happy and motivated, because ultimately they're working for you, they're working for the company, they're working for the whole vision. And if they're not happy, if their working conditions are not happy, are not good, then things will not ultimately work out, because they're the ones who are making the service, they're the ones who are serving the clients, they're the ones who are creating the platform for the freelancers, right? So
Yeah.
if they're not happy, their work will not be good. And if their work is not good, then ultimately your company is going to suffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Revolancer and your all of your ventures are mainly from the tech world. And I have noticed recently, not recently, I think it's going on for a long time, and that technology is disrupting a lot of sectors of our life, be it replacing boring jobs. People used to think that it'll just replace boring jobs, like repetitive ones, but now it's getting into the creative field. Like, ChatGPT and DALI 2 are making like a lot of changes. And I've recently seen that there are many websites which can be used for deep faking people and for video editing and for many creative stuff. And that has like made a lot of people think about the future implications of technology and AI, and what will it be like, what kind of impact will it have in our lives, and whether, and the big question is that they're asking is what kind of jobs will they replace, whether they will make humans redundant as a whole. So what's your take on that? What's your take on the latest technological changes?
Yeah, so I mean, in many ways, what's happening is concerning. I think what's happening has kind of been predicted for a while. I think where I probably disagree a bit with a lot of the media rhetoric is, I don't think that these changes will happen nearly as fast as people seem to think they will. Um,
Mhm.
so, for example, there are lots of factors at play. The an example that jumps to mind immediately is the question of autonomous vehicles. Let's say, and are they going to replace humans driving cars? And how close are we to that
Mhm.
happening? Well, did you know that in the London Underground, so the London subway, the trains have been fully autonomous since 1984. So that's about 40 years at this point. They've been completely
Mhm.
autonomous since then. But there is still a human driver who is paid £60,000 per year, who sits in every train, and when it gets into the station, they press a button to open the doors and to close the doors again. And the reason why that human driver is there is not because the train couldn't do that by itself more reliably than a human can, because for the past nearly 40 years, that's exactly what that train has been doing. But the reason why a human is there is because the regulators won't allow for the trains to actually run fully autonomously. They need for a human to be there. And so that's just an example that isn't applicable to everything, in relation to AI, but it is an example of where sometimes technology isn't necessarily the bottleneck. Even though something is technically possible, there are other factors at play, like regulatory compliance, legal issues, different things like that. An issue with autonomous vehicles as well, for example, is what if the vehicle is in autonomous driving mode and it kills somebody, it hits someone and it kills them? Who's at fault? Is it the company that created that vehicle? Is it the developer who wrote the software? Is it the person who was sitting in the car and who put it into autonomous driving mode? I don't know. Also, there's the trolley problem. So, let's say if the car is currently en route to kill 5 people, if it were to keep driving, but it can like swerve out of the way and then only kill one, what does it do? I mean, these are philosophical questions which, humans have debated for a very long time. I don't know if we'll have the right answer for a car, or especially if the car is somehow trying to make that decision by itself. Um, so what I'm trying to get at ultimately is that I think the pace of change is going to be a lot slower than people think. I mean, as a company, we tried using ChatGPT to create social media copy, to create articles and stuff for us. We found that it's not really reliable enough. So it'll generate
Mm.
great articles for the most part, but every here and then it'll put some nonsense fact in there, or it'll just mess up. So you still need a human checking it over. So it's great as a tool to help a human create an article quicker, but it's not replacing the human because sometimes it generates garbage. I mean, I asked ChatGPT to prove that zero point 0.9 recurring is equal to 1. So step by step, prove to me why that's true. And it said to me, yes, that is true because, and then it came up with different steps. One of the steps was because 8 divided by 9 is equal to 1, and therefore zero point 0.9 recurring is equal to 1. Which is just, that's not true. But it answers with such confidence that it's actually quite dangerous because if you don't know better, it'll convince you that it's telling you the truth. So, I think in many ways it does pose threat to certain kind of roles. I think it will kind of cause similar issues like self checkouts in stores have been, because that's not AI, but it means you need fewer human employees through automation. But ultimately, I don't think it's anywhere near replacing humans completely. So I think it's an interesting development, certainly worth keeping an eye on. But I don't buy into this kind of hysteria that like a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, no humans will have jobs anymore. It's just not going to be that way.
Do you fear that people used to think that is like it will replace repetitive jobs, like boring jobs, but now it's getting into the creative field. It's suddenly writing articles for you. It's suddenly drawing innovative pictures for you. It's suddenly like bringing dead people to life, right? So what kind of implications does it have on the creative industry? What's your opinion on that?
Again, I think that it still to a degree needs some hand holding. So I think there's still a role for humans in supervising the output, maybe making final tweaks, final edits on whatever output it creates, because I don't think that it creates a perfect output by itself. I think there are some serious issues oftentimes with the content that it generates, especially when we're talking about written content with ChatGPT. So I think it lessens the need for humans, but it doesn't kind of replace them completely. But then again, I think that longer term. So if we're like thinking further than a month from now or a year from now, but we're thinking maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I do think that there is going to be a serious issue where there'll be many jobs which right now humans are doing, which at that point will be able to automate for cheaper and more efficiently than humans can do it, and that those same humans are then not capable of doing any kind of task. They don't have the experience, education, background, even innate ability um, to do any kind of job that cannot be automated, better for less. And I think that's going to be a real problem. I don't think that that problem is a year away, but I think within the next 10, 20 years, I think it will be a real problem. And at that point, there have been, some kind of proposed solutions, such as, for example, the universal basic income.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's interesting. I think it's probably inevitable, but exactly how that's going to happen, I don't know. I also think it's sensible at that point, if we get to a point where, let's say, 50% of jobs are, 50% of humans are just unable to do any kind of job that can't be automated for cheaper. I think that corporations need to be taxed quite heavily if they, use AI, or other kinds of automation to replace jobs from humans, so that they are still able to innovate, but that money is then funneled back into a universal basic income, for example, to support people who then otherwise couldn't be supported. So yeah, I think it's going to be a real issue in the future. I don't think that all the answers are on the table yet. I think there's a lot of disagreement on what the correct answer is. um, but yeah, it will be interesting to see what unfolds over the next couple decades.
Hmm. These are very interesting times that we are living in, to be honest.
Yeah,
And
certainly.
I have this book in my mind called *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. And did you hear about him?
Yeah, I've read, well, I read the three books that he's best known for. Homo Deus is my favorite.
Oh, okay. I did not read the three of them. I'm just reading *Sapiens*. To be honest, I'm not a very big reader, but I usually listen to audiobooks. So in the book, he talks about mainly the current events that are going on, the big events, especially climate change, the automation, or like how the fourth industrial revolution. And these are some of the concepts that he at least touched upon, like concepts like universal basic income, how people will accommodate with this change in the job market, and how people and AI, and usually the lives of people and AI will go hand in hand. He just gave a lot of ideas, and if I'm not wrong, in one of the pages he was talking about, just like you said about the philosophical question, he was talking about like how AI, what kind of philosophical program the Tesla or the auto self-driving car should be programmed with. Because this trolley question is a very serious question, to be honest. And to what you said when you were telling that who to blame, whether you should blame the car company or the driver itself. Most of the cases, the most famous self-driving car is now Tesla, right? So Tesla does not, they like tell the driver to put your hand when, even though the car is in self-driving mode. So technically, they're saying that they're not taking any responsibility if there is any accident during the when the car is self-driving. But people are not like that. They sleep when when the car is on self-driving mode. They completely rely upon the self-driving feature of the car. And to be honest, it's like pretty reliable, but it's not there yet. And to defend the self-driving car, what they say is that people have a lot of conditions. Like they can fall asleep, they can be drunk, they can be sad, they can just get distracted, and self-driving cars do not have that. So they do not have those human qualities. What they also say is that they can form a network with other self-driving cars. So let's say when a self-driving car like crosses a bumpy road, it can give indirect message to other self-driving cars that, oh, this location has a bumpy road, so be careful about it. They say that there's this new thing called Internet of Things, through which devices can communicate with each other. That's what they say. Um, so, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't doubt that it's possible to make a self-driving car that drives safer than the average or even safest driving human. But the issue is, like, let's say for argument's sake that you have a self-driving car that is 10 times as safe as the average human driver. It's 10 times less likely to get into an accident. I mean, that would be an amazing accomplishment, but if it gets into an accident, which it absolutely will at some point or other, um, then the kind of the attention that that will receive, it will be far more negative than a human making a mistake or having a stroke or being drunk or whatever reason. But this level of scrutiny that the self-driving car will receive for making that mistake, even if it's statistically speaking 10 times safer than a human, will just be so much higher. And we've already seen this happen, and I think that that will continue, because people, you know they almost expect a machine to be completely infallible. It cannot do wrong. If the car drives itself, then the car drives itself, cannot make a mistake.
Mhm.
So I think there's also a big component to how humans react to it. I mean, to use like an aviation analogy, Airbus and Boeing have been big competitors of each other for a very long time, and and Airbus, and they basically have two slightly different philosophies. So Boeing wants to put the pilot in control as much as possible, and Airbus wants to automate as much as possible. But then, when Boeing tried to step more into the automation side, and they built the Boeing 737 Max that sort of had that automatic anti-stalling system that would basically just make the nose point down. It resulted in hundreds of people dying between two plane crashes that were just a few months apart. And that was from automation. So, would the pilot have been in control, they would have probably been able to, save the plane if they'd been aware of that system or been able to override it properly. So, um, I think people will always struggle, accepting a machine being in control, especially if it makes a mistake. Doesn't matter how much safer. It can be 100 times safer. It can be 1,000 times safer than a human. It doesn't matter. It will not be 100% safe. It will make a mistake at some point. People will get hurt or killed at some point, and then ultimately it'll face such an incredible degree of scrutiny, like we've already seen. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tricky issue for a long time to come.
But don't you think a lot of our lives still, like right now, depends on machines, like the algorithms, the social media algorithms, and like how we meet people, how we even date people. People are using Tinder and other matching websites who are literally determining like their partner. There are algorithms, there are machines, there are machine learning systems who are taking important financial decisions for people. So don't you think like people are already using AI or machines to rely with their like life? So like are
Absolutely,
they
but
already
it's
kind of used to that?
Oh, absolutely, but the thing is, it's less directly linked in their minds. So let's say Facebook recommends a lot of horrible posts to you, which makes you really depressed, which makes you take actions to harm yourself. Facebook is some layers removed from there, so they won't be the immediate thing to point at. Whereas if a self-driving car hits somebody and they're killed, that's the very obvious culprit at that point. So I think with a lot of these systems that we already have, their impact on our lives is a lot more subtle and a lot more vague. And I think that that's something which, if there's not a direct link between things, we as humans kind of are much quicker to disregard it completely.
Facebook is a very good example, to be honest, because a lot of people are not aware of it, but Facebook has a lot of power, especially during, I don't remember like which election it was. I think it was the election where Trump got elected for the first time. So there is this documentary where they showed that Facebook has so much state over people that they know like which which people supports which kind of party, and they know like which people are more easy to convince. So they target those people specifically, um, for in order to get the desired result, right? They show targeted posts towards those people who are not so sure about which party to support, so that the party who was providing them financially and with other benefits, they target those like swinging people, so that
Hmm.
the result of the election can ultimately be impacted. And
Yeah.
Facebook is known for causing polarization. Facebook is known for causing um, like disruptions across the world. And they say that when the U.S. Parliament got raided, I've also heard speculations that people were blaming Facebook for that, because they have caused a lot of polarization in US, and basically in US one party cannot see the other party. So they're not even aware, to be honest, as far as I know, let alone accepting and creating a harmony where they can have a word and coexist together.
Absolutely. I mean, the big issue with the internet is that it kind of tribalizes people. So the issue is, before the internet. Let's say if you had some kind of a crazy radical idea, like, I don't know, the Earth is flat. You could then go and talk to people about it. You could go to the library and get books about the Earth, and then quite quickly you would get a reality check, and people would tell you, no, actually, it's round, it's not flat. And quite quickly you'd kind of be corrected. So the issue is with the internet nowadays. If you just decide one day that you think the earth is flat, you can go online and you can just surround yourself with other people who think the same thing. Like, you can go to communities of people who think the earth is flat. You can watch YouTube videos of people saying the earth is flat, and you completely disregard anything that speaks against your viewpoint. And thinking that the earth is flat is fairly harmless, but let's say this is now an extreme political belief, and you apply the
Mm.
same kind of formula. I think that's why the internet and sites like Facebook certainly don't help. But just the internet in general, and this kind of interconnected online community, it polarizes people, because you can get stuck in an echo chamber quite easily, where your beliefs are just kind of reaffirmed and kind of made more and more radical by those around you, rather than having that reality check of kind of being forced to interact with all kinds of people you agree with, people you disagree with, and just to kind of get more evened out. And social media companies, with their algorithms, ultimately what their algorithms aren't evil. Maybe the result of how they, the actual output is evil, but at their core, what these algorithms are trying to do is they're trying to get you engaged with the platform for longer. So if they recommend you posts that you find interesting or evoke a strong emotional response, you're likely to stay on the platform for longer and to keep scrolling. And that often means that if you start going in a certain direction, like, let's say you start exploring some kind of a radical political view, they're going to show you more and more content around that idea, which is just going to reaffirm it in your mind, but it'll keep you engaged with their platform, which means they can show you more ads, which means that they ultimately win as a business. But in the process, they're radicalizing you, and ultimately, just really damaging society. So that's the real issue, with, yeah, social media algorithms.
True. And I don't know like how much they're working to solve this issue, to be honest, because this issue has like a massive impact in our lives, in a neurological level, especially like for young people. Like platforms that are built on targeting young people, like Snapchat and Instagram, they have a huge impact on developing minds. And we still do not know what kind of impact will it have on them, especially when they grow up, right? Because these young people are going to be the next leaders. They are going to be the next um, I don't know, astronauts maybe. They're going to be at the key position. So if their minds are played with and they are not taken care of, then you are potentially risking the future of a large part of our humanity and existence. So I don't think like regulations are put, like there are enough strong regulations over these companies, because these companies are itself so big that they can influence a lot of people. They have the financial power, they have the, like, a lot of power. And even though like they give the legislations and the laws give, let's say, $1 million um, fine, they make $1 million or $1 billion in just few days. It doesn't even matter to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how it turns out.
It will, but yeah, there are many worrying signs already of the impact of these social media sites on developing minds, and frankly, people of any age, just users of these platforms. So
Hmm.
it is a concern, but they lobby very heavily to protect their interests. And I think the other issue is that oftentimes lawmakers are of a much older generation where they just frankly don't really understand the platform properly. I mean, if you look back where Mark Zuckerberg was being questioned, I think it was by the either the U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate. Some of the questions he was asked were just ridiculous and showed, an absolute lack of understanding of just the modern world, frankly, by a lot of the people who are asking the questions, and that's concerning because they're the people who should be regulating platforms like Facebook, but aren't. One, I suppose, because maybe they're being paid not to, and two, because they just don't understand.
Did you see that video where Sundar Pichai was getting asked, and that person asked, like, if my phone is here and I keep my phone there, will Google be able to track that?
Yeah. And then it was an iPhone, right? It wasn't even a Google phone.
And
Yeah.
Sundar Pichai was confused and he did not know how to like answer that. They asked like very ridiculous questions, and yeah, you're right. There should be competent people who actually understands how things work in order to like question these big personalities. Because to be honest, these days, not only these days, in this era, data is like oil. They say, and they are running the big data companies, right? A lot of businesses, a lot of lives depends on companies like Facebook and Google. A lot of companies rely upon Google search. A lot of companies rely upon Facebook marketplaces, like Facebook pages, Facebook live system, where they come on live and they sell things. And so these companies should be regulated more strictly, and um, the people who will be regulating these companies should have some basic like idea about how they work and how the technology works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe in the future that'll happen as a younger generation starts having a more of an impact, more of a level of influence in politics. But for the time being, I think frankly a lot of the lawmakers and the people we expect to regulate these companies are just absolutely useless because they don't even understand the basics, and then they waste an opportunity to ask these CEOs of these very large companies very important questions. They just waste the opportunity by asking stupid questions like, can Google track my iPhone as I move across the room? I, it's just it's very funny, but it's also very frustrating at the same time
It's
because
very dangerous to be
they're
honest.
not really fulfilling their duty.
Yeah. So the one serious question I would like to ask is, right now the degree I'm taking, the university degree, I'm not really sure about how it's going to get applied into the future world, because of how fast the market is changing, and given that many companies do not even demand degrees for working for them, just like Revolancer doesn't, right? And so I'm not really sure how much I am, or like young people like me, are getting equipped for the fourth industrial revolution or the new market changes that is happening in general. Many people who are taking the expensive university degrees and attending the boring lectures, they are uncertain of the future because of the changes in the market that is happening around the world. And that's not only because of technology, it's also about the political changes, the changes that are happening, which are not even in like many people's control. Like, who knew the pandemic will be there, right? And that has created a kind of like a sense of uncertainty and fear within young people, especially within me. I do not know about the majority. I think it goes for the majority, but yeah. So, what would be your tips or advice for people who are going into this workforce, which is likely to be highly automated and based on technological changes?
Well, I think it depends. It really depends on what you want to achieve. You know, what you want to do with your life. I mean, I think there's a great merit to university. I met my co-founder at university. We received our first bit of grant funding through the university. So, going to university benefited me greatly. But the subject matter, the kind of what I learned in the lectures, I've maybe used like 0.01% of it at work. Um,
Mhm.
Not really more than that. But I think in a lot of cases that's true. That was true even before things like ChatGPT. You'd kind of go to university, learn a bunch of stuff, maybe, but then as soon as you actually get a job, you kind of learn again from scratch. And within a few years, what you learned at university is mostly redundant. So I think that's
Mhm.
always been the case. I mean, I'm a critic of further education in general, but then again, I went to university myself, so I I think it's a bit of a gray area, but ultimately it's just important that you do what you feel is right for you and is in line with what you want to achieve. But I would say that I certainly wouldn't drop out of university purely because you're concerned, about things like ChatGPT. Because again, I think that these things are going to take a while longer, and it's still going to be a while where a lot of companies will look very favorably upon a degree as opposed to no degree. Because yes, we or I and my company think in a much more progressive way than that, but ultimately we're a very very small fish in the pond. There are much larger players who will demand a university degree, and you won't even get to an interview stage to really demonstrate your true potential if you don't have a degree, which is an unfortunate reality. So um, yeah, it ultimately depends what you want to do with your life, but I wouldn't rule a degree out. I think a degree can be a very useful thing, but if you want to go down an entrepreneurial route and start your own business, it's, in my view, certainly not a necessary thing. So yeah, it's just about making the right decision for you.
Like, how would you help? Like, what kind of tips do you have for young people that will help them to navigate through this uncertain time?
Well, I think it's quite important to sit down and figure out, what is it that you want to achieve in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years over the course of your life. It doesn't have to be super specific, and it can change, but like right now, what would what would be your ideal situation when you are, say, 60? That might be, oh, I want to have a big house, I want to have been retired for 30 years, like whatever it is. Maybe it's you still want to be working, whatever it is. Write it down, really think about it, be honest with yourself. Don't picture the ideal situation based on what other people think the ideal situation is. Like, be really true to yourself and think about what is it that makes you happy, what drives you, and where does that lead. And then ultimately, when you have that kind of end goal in mind, and like I say, it can change, that's not a problem, but as long as you have a starting point, you then just take whatever actions that you need to take to get there. So let's say you want to make a lot of money, then okay, well, there are a few different ways to do that. I mean, probably the easiest and most secure way is to go into the world of finance, to become an investment banker or something like that. Because they make a lot of money, they get a big bonus, um, reliably and consistently. And if money is your prime motivator, then that's probably the way to go. If it's important to you to have an impact in the lives of lots of different people, then maybe starting a company could do that. Or if you're passionate about changing a certain industry for the better, again, like starting a company might be the right fit. Um, if you want to, for example, have a lot of balance in your life, so you only want to
Mm.
work kind of the minimal amount, maybe 3 days a week or something, and then spend the rest of the time with your family. Again, there are steps you can take to achieve that. So there's no right or wrong answer. There's only right or wrong for you. So it starts with just figuring out what is it that you want to achieve in life, setting that kind of end goal of your ideal scenario, 10, 50, however many years down the road, and then just taking the steps. So, like, how do I get there? What's the first step that's going to get me closer to that goal? And then just keep going like that. Um, yeah, so I'd say that's the probably the best advice I can give on that.
That's a pretty solid advice. And another thing which people say is surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. They say that if you are surrounding yourself with good people, champion people, rich people, you're going to be like them. And there's this quote which I've heard. It says that you're the average of the people you hang around with. So I did not quote it exactly, but I think it delivers the message that if you're hanging around with good people, if successful people, driven people, you will have those kind of ideas, those kind of values installed within you. And as you said that you found your co-founder in university, so it like reflects that networking is very important. Surrounding yourself with the right kind of people is very important. So what kind of tips do you have for people who want to effectively network, especially in the young stages and university stages, or like in the development stages in general?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so first of all, never network at a networking event. I absolutely despise networking events. I think that the issue is with a networking event, everyone is turning up because they want to talk about what they have to offer, what makes them so special. So if you're at a networking event, you'll have like person after person coming up, telling you why they're so great, basically giving you their business card, and you're going to forget everyone you spoke to. Or maybe you'll remember like one obnoxious person or something and you'll forget everyone else. So that's a terrible place to go networking. The best place to network with people is where other people won't be trying to speak to them or network with them. So approaching them on, I don't know, finding their email and sending them an email is an example of that. Or maybe they're like sort of at a conference where there's a keynote speaker and and you kind of approach them that way, or they're on a panel. Um, but not where like the expectation is, okay, you should be networking with them now. And then in terms of like networking with quite accomplished people when you're young, which I mean I did. So at the age of 18, I connected with a guy who is a co-founder of the company Just Eat, which is
Hmm.
originally they were a UK based company and they've now merged with takeaway.com. And well, long story short, they're worth multiple billions and they're one of the leading takeaway ordering apps throughout Europe. And the guy that I connected with was the founding chief marketing officer of this company, and he's now an advisor for Revolancer. And when I met him, I didn't have any like. I mean, this was years, probably 3 years before I started Revolancer, so I didn't have any immediate, like thing to share with him. But I just showed an interest. I mean, I was interested. I still am very interested in what he does. But I showed an interest. I learned what I could from him, spoke to him about his different projects, and I just made sure that I would keep in touch. And then every few months, I'd send him a WhatsApp message and just check in, maybe ask him for a bit of advice here and there. Um, and then ultimately, it came to the point where he's now an advisor in my company, which is extremely helpful for us. So I think you'd be surprised how much you can get by just asking. people who have accomplished a lot are, in what I found, quite willing to help people who are just starting out. Probably because when they were starting out, they had lots of people who helped them, and now they want to pay it forward.
Hmm.
Um, so you just need to show that you're onto something interesting. Be humble, be respectful, show an interest, ask lots of questions, and just go out there and try. You just have to ask, and then maybe they'll say no, but quite possibly they'll say yes. But if you don't ask at all, then it'll always be the same as if they said no. But it's even worse because they won't even know who you are. They won't even remember your name. So yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of no's. So the approach is like asking out as many people as possible so that you get the percentage of getting a yes like higher. So I went to a networking event. I'm sorry for it, even though like you said that you hate it. And so like the anchor or the organizer was like sharing the story of how he managed sponsors for organizing the event. And he said that he like approached so many sponsors, so many people for sponsoring the event. Some of them did not respond, some of them left on scene, some of them did not even care about it. Like only two or three sponsors responded to the like actually sponsoring the event, and that made the event possible. So like the main message what he was trying to give was try to reach out to as many as people as possible because most of them are going to reject you. And so if you like reach out to many people, you're gonna have more chances for actually landing people on your event or on your business or whatever which you're doing. And honestly I follow the similar approach when it comes to like bringing guests on my show, because I'm a very small show right now and people do not want to like come onto my show very easily. So I like go out to platforms and people and like message them like I make podcast about this kind of show and I have this much of audience. Um, will you be able to like come onto my show and it will be very helpful for me and I'll be able to give you exposure. I just give a like write a very brief message, and most of the times I do not even get a reply back from most of the people. So like the one or two people or three people who actually come to me and respond to me, or who actually responds to my messages, are the ones who are actually keeping this like show alive for me. So yeah, you'll have to get used to getting a lot of no's and rejections in order to like
Yeah.
grow.
Absolutely, but um, if you don't get a lot of people saying no, you're not doing anything of value. You're just playing it safe. You're
Mm.
not running the podcast. If you just decided to stop your podcast tomorrow, no one would ever say no to you about being on the podcast again. But then you wouldn't have the podcast. So it's always going to be and it's always going to be an issue at the beginning, but you just have to keep fighting through, and then as you get more and more guests and as your audience grows, it'll be start getting easier to get people to say yes. So it's the first part that's the hardest. I mean, this is why most startups fail. It's why most projects fail, because the first part is frankly the hardest part, and it gets, in many ways, it gets easier as you go along. So if you stay resilient and push through this, um, in many ways it gets easier on the other side, certainly to onboard guests or even to grow your audience, because once your audience grows, there'll be more and more people in your audience who'll be sharing it with their friends, and then you'll get some viral effect going as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, like now is this is really the time where you prove I mean, this is the defining time, is what I'm trying to say. The defining moment isn't going from 100,000 listeners to 1 million listeners. The defining moment is going from 0 listeners to 1,000, or from 1,000 to 10,000. That's when really, that's the defining moment.
And these like struggling stages are the ones who which like actually teach you valuable lessons. It can be like mindset lessons, it is like of technical lessons, things which you do not even know about the industry. Like I believe that if you learn by doing things, it is more effective than if you just learn by reading a book or just like watching a YouTube video or a tutorial. That's why I feel like a lot of the things which I have learned through the education system or traditional system, I actually do not know how to apply them. I have no idea about the real life applications of it because I have not done that thing by hand itself. I have not experimented the things. I have not like applied it in real time market conditions, in real life conditions. So like let's say I've studied economics, but I have no idea like how the actual thing will work in actual real life condition where you're getting bombarded with different kind of situations, different kind of scenarios. But in theory, you are actually learning about one very simplified version of the whole thing. And that is pretty dangerous to be honest, because as we said earlier, the people who know less actually think that they know more. So they turn out to be very stupid at times. So so people, it's very tricky to be honest. And when you are learning something by doing things, you get to know about a lot of things, a lot of small details here and there which you would not have learned if you were just learning from a book or a tutorial and not experimenting it in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's one of my main issues with, the kind of the formal education system. I personally, I learn best by doing things as well. I'm definitely not much of a theory person. I'm very much a, I want to figure it out for myself kind of person. So, and I don't think that school and university and college or whatever serves people like that very well, which is a shame. Um, but the good thing is that nowadays it's very easy to go out there and teach yourself certain things. Like you can use the internet, you can use YouTube, you can use Google, you can use whatever you want as a reference. So, like, let's say you want to build a website for, you want to make a blog for yourself, then you can go and find certain tutorials of, like, oh, how do I do this step now? So, like, I need a domain name. How do I register a domain name? What does that cost? Where's the best place? Get that, and then you need to say, okay, now I need a web host. Again, what's the best way of doing that? And learn different parts about it. So you can kind of learn really by doing there. So I think that's the good news, right? You absolutely can teach yourself basically anything, using resources that are, to a very large degree free. I mean, I know it's not fully free to have a device and an internet connection, but it's, there's much more within your reach now than there was in, the early 1990s, for example, when you probably have to go and find some books, and maybe they wouldn't even have exactly what you want in them. So, yeah, that's the silver lining of living in the modern world.
That's a very good like golden opportunity we have to be honest. Like there are knowledge out there which I feel is like more valuable than gold, because and like many people do not watch it, they're not even aware of it. Like there's so many audiobooks of so many valuable books that you get there on free on YouTube. There are so many startup counseling sessions where they teach you about startups, where like people like Sam Altman, like and Elon Musk, they give valuable advice, who are like actually experienced. And Y Combinator, I don't know whether you have heard of it or not. They actually help people build startups, and they have like valuable lessons for free on YouTube where like they have actual Harvard classes of business like freely uploaded on YouTube. And I don't know like what kind of like things they gain from that, but I feel like people can ask normal people or people who do which they do not have like a lot of opportunities can learn a lot of it from them. But unfortunately, they do not these kind of content does not gain a lot of attraction because a lot of time it's boring, a lot of times it's like hard to digest, and you need a lot of patience to actually go through the web and actually collect um like the actual polished information, because a lot of information is scattered and a lot of information is irrelevant and also fake, so it's like hard to distinguish, even if it's like a little bit difficult. But yeah, the knowledge is there. And to be honest, everything like that I am doing right now, nobody taught me. I did not learn it from any book. And I, the more I am like working, I'm realizing that there's a lot of things I can improve on. Like, let's say I'm using my phone as my webcam, but if you like look at my previous podcast episode, the video quality was horrible. Okay, so I realized that okay, I need to do something to improve my video quality because it's a video podcast. So I was not willing to invest into a new webcam because I do not know how it works. So just search it up. I just searched up on YouTube, like how can I use my phone as a webcam. So now, right now, I'm using my phone as a webcam. I did not have to pay a single penny for buying a new webcam, right?
Mm.
And and I was thinking of like improving my audio experience, and so I was thinking of buying a new expensive mic, but I did not have to do that because I found out there's a new tool where if you upload your audio into the tool, it will just eliminate all the background noises and it will enhance your audio quality. So yeah, I am having to explore these things by myself. No one is coming to me and like teaching me by like guiding me hand by hand that we should do this, you should do that, you should do this. So you just need to have the interest and like the drive to like learn, and that is how I think you will grow.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. I think if you are limited, then that's when you can really be creative and you can really learn the most, because you know those issues you were just describing. Let's say you had a budget of, let's say, $1 million, and you could just throw money at these problems. You know, buy a fancy new webcam, fancy new microphone. Yeah, might solve your problem, but you haven't learned anything and you've wasted a bunch of money. But where you're sort of limited in needing to be more creative about solving these problems, you've now learned a lot more. You know, so I think that there's a lot of value in that, which is lost once you kind of have a lot more resources that you can just throw at something. Like I mean, a lot of my initial businesses and websites I set up with somewhere between 10 and £200 pretty much always. You know, whereas now, I mean, Revolancer spends a crazy amount of money on various different things. You know, whereas before I could set up a website for just very low amounts of money because I taught myself all these different things. So yeah, there's a lot of value in those times. So yeah.
I like to just give a fun tip for networking, and that is if you want to meet with people, just need to start a new podcast.
Well, I mean, many people have done that very successfully, like Stephen Bartlett, for example, with Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, I mean, I have a new podcast, and that is why I can bring people, like reputed people like you, into my show and like get so much of valuable knowledge and insights about the business world and how we can actually operate in it. So this itself is a big opportunity because if you look back 20 years from now, it's not even imaginable that like people from different continents will be video conferencing and actually providing some value to people through just having a good meaningful conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you know, it reminds me of something that I read in a book, Power by Jeffrey Pfeffer, where he described a situation of someone who was at the start of their career and they wanted to build credibility. So what they did is they wrote a book about business, contacted a bunch of very reputable business owners, you know, very successful entrepreneurs, basically asked them to write like a short quote or a little comment for his book that he was going to publish. Um, And then when it came to it, he had all these like short quotes and chapters or whatever from these highly successful entrepreneurs. He then added a bit himself, put everything in a nice order, did the final edits, then published the book. And now him, where his name was completely unknown at that point, he now suddenly co-authored a book with all these like super famous, successful business people, and now suddenly it really elevated his own profile. And all he did was reach out to different business owners and ask them for quotes or to write like a chapter or a paragraph or something for his book. So I think that's a similar example as well, which was possible before the age of the internet. So it's a great way of building your network. Absolutely.
Hmm. It's a great way of building a network. It's a great way of acquiring knowledge because you're basically here like gaining knowledge from people's experience, which are more relevant, which are more like useful because a lot of the knowledges which we gain from like books, I think are not even relevant, even though like they get updated and they're like different editions. I feel like still a lot of them are not really up to the time, especially given the fact that our times and our generation is like rapidly changing. I mean, if you like see, I mean, if younger sibling older siblings, even if they're just like 6 or 7 years old, it still feels like there's a huge gap in between their time and our time, right? Just because of how
Yeah,
fast the time is, like our generation is progressing, and like how times are changing. So yeah.
absolutely.
So I would like to like end the conversation by asking like few main questions, and that is, like, you have been associated with a lot of startups. So what are your top strategies for growing a business or growing a startup?
Well, it comes back to something I said earlier. You need to speak to your customers and find a product that they really love using. And once you've really refined the product for your target audience, then the scaling process becomes easy because people will tell other people about it. Any new people within your target audience that you tell about it won't need much convincing to use it. So you need to really perfect the product before you think about scaling it up, and at that point the scaling process will be easy, relatively speaking.
So, Carl, thank you for coming onto my show and sharing your valuable insights and experiences about the business world, tech world, and startup.
Yeah, it's
Would you
my
like to
pleasure.
give
Thank you
any?
for having me.
Thank you. Would you like to give any like last message to my viewers?
Well, I mean, I'll say the same thing I always say, which is if you have an idea and you want to have a go at building your business or changing your career or kind of journey in life, then I'd say give it a shot because you regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did do, even if it went wrong. So if you start a business and it fails, in the long run, that's going to give you so much experience, so much knowledge, connections, and just value. Whereas if you decide, oh, the risk is too big, I'm not going to try it, I'm going to take the safe route, I think you'll probably regret it in the long term. And that doesn't mean it has to be starting a business, but just remember that fortune favors the bold, and do follow your heart, follow what you're passionate about, and ultimately, I think that's the key to living a fulfilling life.
True. I cannot agree more. So, thank you, Carl, for coming onto my show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Well, I suppose I have a bit of experience now. I've been doing quite a few podcast interviews recently, so a lot of time to think and kind of refine my what I say about certain topics. No, not at all. But I mean, certain themes come up, like how to start a business, the future of AI and technology, and so on. So, no, a lot of the questions you asked me I hadn't been asked before, but they're still in areas that I've given a lot of thought to. Mm. I think it's still recording, by the way. Do you need to stop the recording for it to upload? I know that's how it works on some other podcasting software that I've been on. Oh, it's showing as recording on my side, but I don't know what's going on there. No, it's just showing the like red kind of flashing thing, and then a counter that's counting up, but no option to stop it. Yeah, yeah. You get what you pay for is usually the the reality. I'm just seeing on my side, I can see that it says cloud backup is complete, and local backup is complete. So I assume it's uploaded. Yeah, sure.